Olayinka Jibunoh, popularly known as Dr. Jibs, and with me in the studio today I have my co-anchor Olawale Abe.
Good morning, Lagos.
And our guest, Mr. Olurotimi Ajala.
Good morning, Lagos.
He's the head of HR at Future Finance Company Limited. Today on the show we'll be discussing emotional hygiene and the role of HR in boosting emotional hygiene within the workplace. I wonder if we've ever heard the term emotional hygiene before, but we're very familiar with the terms like personal hygiene and oral hygiene. You know, the dentist says brush your teeth twice a day so that you don't have cavities and then you don't have to go to the dentist often to pull out your teeth. They also say have a bath at least twice a day, bath really well and scrub really well so that you don't develop body odor or any funny stuff like that. So we're very familiar with personal hygiene and oral hygiene, but I must tell you that there's also a third entity called emotional hygiene. A lot of times we pay a lot of attention to the outer part, the physical part, and we disregard our emotional health. Today I want to introduce us to the concept of emotional hygiene and the role it plays in building emotional resilience. So, emotional hygiene is when we're mindful of our psychological health and then we adopt brief daily habits to monitor and address psychological wounds when we sustain them. As humans, as people that interact with other people, it's inevitable that we encounter wounds, emotional wounds every now and then. Emotional wounds range from trauma, domestic violence, emotional abuse, physical abuse. Trauma can come in different ways, bullying and others, or grief, the loss of a loved one, the loss of a job, the loss of a relationship, the loss of an opportunity. Grief comes in several ways. We also have disappointments, loneliness, rejection, criticism, or even failure. All these are attacks that we face daily that can hit us psychologically. So you're going about your regular work and then your boss slams you with a sack letter. That on its own has already hit you on the inside. You might look calm on the outside and you might even smile back acting like you're not bothered, but truly on the inside your mind starts to say, have I saved enough money? How am I going to get by? How am I going to, on the inside there's a lot already going on, so we encounter this. It's inevitable, we encounter these things daily. So that's why it's important for us to have these conversations. We can't escape these wounds. We can't escape these wounds. However, the way the wounds come can affect our emotional immune system. So the way the wound hits you the way we have the immune system that caters to whether we get infections and things, so we also have our emotional immune system, which we often refer to as our self-esteem. So the way the wound hits you determines how the impact it will have on your self-esteem. So someone that is very bubbly, very outgoing, very healthy self-esteem gets the sack letter from his boss, and the weeks that follow from that that notice, he starts to doubt himself. He starts to withdraw from other people. He's not as confident as he used to be. There's been a hit on his self-esteem, and that self-esteem is what we call our emotional immune system. So in that moment, it's not unusual to find that the self-esteem drops. But the way he now handles that situation, or the way he's able to manage that experience or that phase, will determine if he's able to bounce back up again and have a healthy self-esteem, or remain at that low self-esteem for longer periods of time. And when we talk about our immune system, is when your immune system is low, any infection that comes boost. This one, COVID comes, this one comes bad. Everybody's coughing beside you. You catch it, someone is sneezing. Same thing, when your self-esteem is low, a lot of things can come at you and it would hit you. So a low self-esteem, that's when someone can say, maybe I should start drinking. Maybe if I drink safe, I'll start feeling better. Maybe if I smoke, he has never considered smoking for 20 years of his life.
People get terminated from work and just go straight to the bar.
Go straight. So once there's a hit on someone's self-esteem, certain things so they could start to do things that they would normally not do, and it starts to look out of character. But in that moment, they are really down. They're not processing it as they should, and anything coming just hits them. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yes. You're communicating.
So really, psychological wounds can have an effect on our self-esteem and lower our self-esteem. However, it's now the emotional first aid we put in place in that moment. That's one of the things that helps us bounce back. So you can see that I'm using terminologies that has to do with physical health. Physical first aid. We know that when you have a wound on the outside, you have a cut, immediately wash the wound, use spirit to clean the wound, put iodine. That's first aid, so that wound does not become infected. Same thing, we have emotional first aid. In those moments where we feel rejection, criticism, disappointment, loneliness, the ideal thing is to, kick in emotional first aid so that you're able to build your self-esteem back and survive. For some people, in those moments, that might be the best time to call their best friend, and then they are crying for 2 hours on the phone. That's emotional first aid, because the person feels like someone is listening, and that gives the person some relief in that moment. For some other people, it might be, that's my co-host. People have their own techniques, but whatever. Some people, let me just go with the common one, church. Some people might just hit the church at that point. I tell some of our mothers straight to church. Hey, you said that he sacked you. Let's go to the MFM night vigil this night.
Some people play sports.
Some people play sports. So different people have different things that kick in, but some people don't. So some people might go through that issue and they just be there, thinking about it, and they just keep drowning. They don't know that they're supposed to put in some measures to help lift them back up. So once we're able to put emotional first aid in, and we heal from that phase or that trauma or that grief, we can say that we've become emotionally resilient. So you can see it's in phases. You build hygiene, but as you're building hygiene, wounds can hit you left, baz, which you cannot avoid. But when it comes, it dips your self-esteem, and when it happens, if you're able to put emotional first aid in place, you now become, it's like you build strength, you now become resilient, and you're stronger, then you're able to navigate through that phase. So by the time you're busy emotional resilience, that's when you now start to dust your CV back. I think I should go and start looking for that. You're entering one bank to the other. Please, are you recruiting? You know that is recruiting. But if you have not bounced back, you might be in one corner for 6 months. Time will just be passing. You can't see the need to look for now. You just feel like
the world is
boss said I'm the most useless employee in the world. Maybe I'm the most useless employee. I can never make it again. And then your wife or your husband is like, try again. I know. You just feel
down,
and then you just cannot get back up. As opposed to the person that gets up, packages CV and moves on. You understand? So now, when we heal, we become more emotional resilient. However, when we don't heal, we now start to bleed emotionally. So there's also bleeding, emotional bleeding. But it's just that we don't see blood in that one. However, the consequences are more devastating than the one where you see real blood. So emotional bleeding is when the feelings of a person starts affecting his or her actions and emotional states. So imagine a person that is down, is low. Your wife is like, go and look for work now, or your mother is like, go and look for work, and you're like, I cannot look for work. Then as time progressing, you now start snapping at everybody in the house, fighting everybody in the house. When somebody is spending money in front of you, say, hey, because you feel you have more money, happy? Is it because I don't have money, Or I can't think of other examples, but every little thing now starts getting to you, Everybody is going to work on that, say, hey, so they are all going to work. This Nigeria is useless, it now starts to show. So you're bleeding onto others. So someone just greets you.
What's good about it?
Something. You say, what?
What's good about it?
That's great too. Sir, how are you today? What? What's so good about today or something? You just react in a very
you just have to
negative
your
way
neighbor's generator
or something. So you just start to bleed. That's what we call bleeding. So you're bleeding. People are just being nice to you, but you are the total opposite, and they're wondering what's going on. And then with long-term emotional bleeding comes bitterness and resentment. So you have some people like that. Over time, 10 years has passed, they'll be telling you about that 10 years ago when I was working CDN, Mr. Maybe they call the person's name.
It was there when they printed the new man.
Because he hasn't moved on
from that situation.
Yes, so it now becomes bitter and resentful, and there can be you a lot of times we find that some of these people, as time goes on, it starts to because they are bleeding on others, so it starts to affect people around you. So you find that the spouses they're like, I don't know why this person did it. Since he lost his job or since this thing happened to him, he has been like this. I'm not even doing it again. Then everybody starts to avoid or move out of the equation, and it now means it's just that person alone, and most times the person deteriorates further because now they're all by themselves. Okay, so before I move on to other practices we can put in place to boost our emotional hygiene, I'll just take a break for a few minutes, and then when we return we would move over to Mr. Olurotimi Ajala to share some of his HR perspectives on the matter. Engaging Mr. Olurotimi Ajala, the head HR at Future Finance Company Limited. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yes, so the workplace is a place where we get a lot of emotional wounds. We spend a lot of time at work.
Correct.
And we get exposed to a lot of people in the workplace. So we find that a lot of times this rejection, criticism, disappointments, a lot of time we get hit within the workplace. So just want to get your expertise on how the workplace can be more emotionally friendly. How can we boost the emotional health of our employees and even the employers themselves?
Okay, thank you very much for having me. This topic is quite sensitive as per workplace, because even before now, you've had HR elites come up with different theories on hygiene and motivation, so they work to get hand in hand. To cite just one, we have Frederick Hirschberg, who came up with a theory on motivation and hygiene in the workplace. So, but not to digress so much into that theory, I would say a workplace is somewhere we spend most of our time. Citing Law FM as an example, this is a workplace, and even if you might have different flexi mode of work here, but you find out that you spend most of the time here, commuting down from various homes down to work. Colleagues are basically our families, so the emotional part of it, the workplace has a big role to play in the emotions of staff. So I don't know, would you want me to hold it?
Karen, so as employers, how can we improve the emotional health of our workforce?
Okay.
What are some of the measures employers can take?
Okay, all right. It's an endless list, but I'll just like to take a few in no order of preference, though. But I would start by saying, a workplace is supposed to be friendly, non-toxic, devoid of every toxicity, because you can relate that to high attrition that you have right now in most workplaces, apart from the Jackma syndrome you have, and, that which is majorly, if you drill down into some of these courses, especially during exit interviews for staff who decide to
leave,
exit, you'll find out that majority of it has to do with maybe non-friendly, apart from the environmental factors, political factors, APC, PDP, what have you. Most of it starts from the workplace. So employers have to play a big role by ensuring that the environment is not toxic. They are management is as transparent as possible. There's they do what they say, in terms of core values. They do what they speak as well. So there are so many entities surrounded by the non-toxic work culture, but I'd just like to put that while I mention some other initiatives. So would say again, engaging in work-life balance, that is critical to employees generally now. Global practices now ensure try to preach that you introduce work-life balance strategies for your employees, because COVID taught us that you don't have to be in the office 24 hours to get job done.
Exactly.
So work-life balance could include different initiatives which are peculiar to objectives of each
individual
organization. So, but to mention a few, you could enroll your staff for gym activities. You could get them to have team bondings, where it could be.
We love that, definitely.
So it's also
team bonding.
How often do you think they should do team bonding activities? I'm sure employees want team bonding every month.
Okay, again, I think that would be a fallout of the culture of the organization, because
I want to know your recommendation, really, because it's always about money,
Yeah, exactly. So while I'm checking my costs, my HR costs, at the same time, you need to engage with your employees. So that would also dictate when you can propose, the operational modules of the organization.
So it doesn't affect the actual
some
work.
Might not have the time to host team bondings during the week. Some it might be weekend. So I think it just falls. But to say, from a general perspective, I would say quarterly would be a bad practice for maybe any startup organization.
Yeah, quarterly. I think that will be fine.
So yes, that's to mention a few. It's diverse. So it's like I said earlier, the list is endless. So gym, I've mentioned having a cafeteria whereby people during their break time they could come together, just talk about politics, talk about anything, talk about just something to purge out any toxicity or any unhygiene that might have accrued as a result of your emotional stress. So we move on to I mentioned team bonding activities earlier. We also have improvements in compensation and benefit strategies to employees. Yes, that is critical. And as much as people love to do, or either they love to do what they want to do or they do not, they want to earn their pay. So
that's why you're here, definitely. So earn that money.
So knowing fully well that the management or the top executives in any organization have their staff compensation and welfare in mind, that keeps them a bit sane, and like she mentioned, the hygiene is also healthy. It's not a bad hygiene. So can I move on to that's the rule for the employer?
Yes,
the employees.
Please carry on.
Sorry,
carry on.
Okay, so from employees' impact or input to ensure that they maintain a healthy emotional hygiene, you need to try and avoid workplace toxicity as well. It's humans that bring about toxicity. It's not the structure, it's not the ambience, it's not the computers that bring about toxicity. It's what human beings, the way they do things, that's what's
because the management can be trying to bring a certain culture, and some individuals are there doing the exact opposite.
They're resisting to change, or just we have them that way. So they call them detractors. Usually called detractors in HR terminology. They just want to detract from the status quo. So we try to look out for those kind of people as HR as well, to understand why they want to detract from what the culture is. So, but then it's the onus is on employees as well to ensure the culture of the organization is healthy enough, and by that you can also attract talent to the organization. So you have to have a positive mindset. I voted PDP, I voted LP, I voted, regardless of the results, just ensure you stay positive,
but it's so easy to say stay positive after your boss just issued you a query. How are you going to stay positive, really?
Okay, now to answer your question, right, when you say not to sound so spiritual on answering your question, I have a belief that what you have in your mind, a picture of what you put in your mind, eventually comes to reality. There's a psychomotive play. Scientists will tell you that it might not be a one-off thing.
Dr. Olurotimi now, right?
But as time goes by, you see it. What you don't think, what you don't want. If you think negativity, negativity surely would be the picture or the output of what you would see. So just regardless, it starts from within. Regardless of what happens politically or what you have, or within your workplace rather, you ensure you stay positive. There are cushioning measures to what you said, like, okay, you've been given a query. That comes back to policies, comes back to a whole lot. Exactly. But holistically, staying positive,
respond to the query in a positive manner.
Exactly.
So that but that's actually what's going to get you off the hook. So if you're being issued a query, you respond back in a positive manner. Your boss understands that you're sober and that you've learned a lesson. Then you're all back to work.
Exactly.
If you respond in a negative manner or not trying to see the lesson in it, you probably get a warning letter, and you don't know what will come out from that.
Exactly. So staying positive, it's a top one required of employees in the workplace. Then you have to be intentional as well, intentional about your goals, really, because if the workplace, majority of it forms what's forms our psychomotive perspective, right? But again, when you are intentional, like, okay, regardless of whatever is going on, you have your laid down goals for yourself. Some of these things, because you stay focused and you're intentional,
your plans for self-development,
they can stand as a barrier between the external factors in the workplace and your internal factors. Because trust me, motivation, you have intrinsic motivation, that comes from within. Even if the organization gives you all you have and within, there's just no motivation. You don't see anything good about yourself. Then so you have to be intentional. Then self-development also.
So I guess as employers, we should encourage staff to prepare their long-term goals, their self-development goals, and encourage them to attain those goals.
Exactly.
Because if you allow them to remain static, as time progresses, they start to feel like they're not moving forward, they become negative, and it will have an impact on the organization.
Exactly. So that could be one again for excuse me, for from the perspective of employees. And then that was self-development. There's what we call individual development plan that most organizations should have. Basically, that focuses on what you've just mentioned. Every employee's
learning and
strengths, weaknesses, your short-term goals, your long-term goals, and by that the employee and the organization can as well help you grow through. So most structured organizations, the HR should assist in driving that, and then from feedbacks on your engagement with these employees, you're able to know if your ambassadors, which are your employees, that are going to align with your own long-term strategic goals. So let me stop there.
Oh, that's so loaded. so loaded. Thank you very much, Mr. Olurotimi. So now we'll move on to practices we can engage in as individuals to help boost our emotional hygiene. So I would anchor it on 3 major pillars. The first would be that we need to pay attention to our feelings. Second is that we need to maintain healthy habits, and then we need to address emotional pain. So first, paying attention to our feelings. When these wounds come, or when they hit us, of course there will be change. There will be a change. We're human, we're not wood. Our feelings will change. So you're rooting for Manu or something. Manu loses a match that evening. You might not be as you watch that match in the evening after, you might not be as optimistic as you would, but as time goes on, you pick up again, or you get into feelings change. I'm just trying to say that feelings are fluid. You might feel a certain way in the morning, by afternoon you feel different. It's fluid, but it's important to pay attention to it when it becomes consistent. So if you find that you're angry and that anger remains consistent, it's something you need to pay attention to. If you find that you are having negative feelings, you're feeling sad a lot, you're feeling downcast, you're starting not to see the good in a lot of things anymore. A lot of people, you're not seeing the good in people, or you're being pessimistic about a lot of things, it's something to pay attention to. If someone even says it to you and say, guys, like lately you've been a very, very negative, every little thing you're always seeing white won't work before white will work, instead of feeling like the person is just criticizing you, maybe it's something to ponder on and consider and check if that is really happening, and put some measures in place. You understand? It's not Don't just assume the person is hitting on you and just wants to.
Yeah, but doctor, some people, it's difficult for them to know how they feel. I think it varies per person.
So it's emotional. It's important for us to become very emotionally aware. That's the first step. To remain emotionally healthy, you need to become more aware of your emotions. So when we talk about emotions now, in terms of sadness now, there are different grades of sadness. There's just feeling low, there's feeling sad, there's feeling depressed, there's despair, there's there's a range of sadness. Same with anger. There's just anger, there's is anger become aggression, violent. There's a range. Same with happiness. There's happiness, there's excitement, there's ecstatic, there's a wide range of things. But as humans, we should be able to define how we're feeling. So it's just becoming aware, really. If you do some research or you speak to a therapist can help you define the emotions you're feeling. Sometimes some people might not be able to put it in words, but they might describe it and someone can put a label on it as, okay, this is the emotion you're feeling.
Okay.
But what I'm just trying to say is that it's important for us to become more aware. So if you find that you're consistently feeling a certain way, don't push it under the carpet. You're consistently angry, you're consistently sad, don't disregard it. Do something about it. Why am I feeling this way? What is going on? Is there a wound that has been hitting you is there some trauma or something that's been hitting you that you have not addressed that is now making you bleed in a certain way? So it's important for us to be more aware of our negative and positive emotions and then take actions when necessary to resolve this emotion so that we don't bleed all over the place and on other people. Okay, then when I say we need to maintain healthy thinking patterns, it's very important. In physical health, we say maintain healthy habits. Try to exercise, eat a balanced diet, do this, spend time with other people. We're always talking about the physical. Don't eat too much salt, don't do this, don't do that, eat your vegetables and all that. But emotionally too, there are also healthy patterns as well, healthy thinking patterns. So we say it's important to keep your brain active, engage in activities that keep your brain active. Some people are readers, some people love to play board games, Sudoku, chess, Scrabble,
Monopoly,
whatever it is. Some people like to engage in conversations with others. When you converse with other people, you're working the brain, you're doing that back and forth. It's a brain exercise on its own.
Does movies count?
Movies help you are quite passive and laid back. TV just makes you so you can be in front of TV for 2 hours. You might not be really following what's going on. The only way we'll be sure you follow this is at the end of the movie when we ask you what happened to Mr. John. You can tell me. Well, a lot of times there's a tendency to just that's what watching movies and things will do to the brain. So that's why we say don't do it too much.
Okay.
Don't be sedentary. Don't just be in front of the TV 24 hours a day. You just put your brain to sleep. But if you engage in more active stuff that gets you to do that back and forth, that's better for the brain. Okay. Then aside from that, it's also important to challenge unhealthy thinking patterns. So there's a tendency for us to develop negative thinking patterns, especially when we're in an environment where maybe things are not working or things are harder than usual. There's a tendency to become pessimistic. You wake up in the morning, the first thing you see on the news is bad news. You've never even stepped out of your house, already bad news. So as you're going, you're already expecting that. A lot of negative. So there's a tendency to just have that negative. I don't know what examples to give right now, but I'm sure you understand what I'm trying to say. Once someone is coming at you, you already feel maybe this person decides to say something. Why it won't work before why it will work. But instead of being negative, it's important that when those thoughts cross your mind, you challenge unhealthy thinking patterns. If you find yourself always seeing why it won't work, if you find yourself being pessimistic all the time, don't allow that thought pattern linger. It's always important that you challenge it from the mind. When you challenge it from the mind, it's unlikely to show on the outside. So it's important for us to always challenge unhealthy thinking. But there's so many of them, so many unhealthy thinking patterns. But what I'm just trying to say is that when you find yourself being negative, always challenge it from the inside.
So Mr. Rotimi, basically in the workplace, if you notice one of your employees have a negative thinking pattern, what will you likely do? What's your next step?
Okay, well, I've had many of that such scenarios in both present and in the past, and I believe so much in engagements, which is following up, continuous follow-ups and interactions with such person. So first you need to know what is responsible for such negative thinking or thoughts behind such employee, and when you know that, you can now address the situation. If it has to do with issues within the organization, there are ways you could assign coach. You can assign a coach to constantly speak to the person. It doesn't have to be the direct line manager. It could be someone, maybe a higher level supervisor, speaking to the person continuously, and it entails monitoring, because you don't just speak to the person and leave the person. It could be suicidal, it could be anything. So just ensure that from frequent interactions, you're able to know what best fit approach tackles the negative thoughts.
Okay.
But I must add that even if the issue is not from the workplace, sometimes people bring issues from outside the workplace. So what might be posing a hindrance or an obstacle to the person might be some challenge they are facing
in his personal life.
home.
Yes. That's what I said. So a coach is in the best position. A coach or a mentee or a mentor rather can help person grow. It doesn't have to be on the job issues. It could be personal issues. So, or a therapist, not this case by case.
So helping them get the help that they need.
So that you could refer the person to therapy if you
yes you could have.
But a lot of people get offended with that, like.
No,
there's a program we call the Employee Assistance Program.
EAP, exactly.
Yes, EAP program where organizations work with facilities like the Freudian Center or mental health service providers, where you give them an opportunity to seek for counseling or psychological help whenever they might be going through some emotional trauma or psychological distress. So it's similar to what HMOs are. So HMOs will cater to your physical needs. So you have your HMO card, you go there, if you are coughing, whatever, they treat you. But the EAP is a psychological service. So bearing in mind that even the physical illness, sometimes there might be an underlying psychological problem.
Yes,
so we need to also give people the opportunity to seek for psychological help when necessary. So the employers pay for EAP service. So the employers allot some money annually to pay some money to the mental health service providers once annually to cover their staff. So the staff and their dependents. So it's not just the staff's children, spouses can walk in to the mental health facility whenever they are going through any form of psychological distress, and they're able to speak with someone who then helps them address it. But the AP service will not just counsel. They will also work with other organizations to address whatever might be causing that problem. So someone might be in psychological distress because they're in a lot of debt, they're owing a lot of money, or they have a loved one that is ill, or they're having rental issues or something, there can be financial issues, there can be marital issues. So the service provider, the mental health provider, counsels first, then helps them get the solution to that problem. Because at the end of the day, is when you can solve whatever the underlying problem is, that's when the person can now breathe and be fine. So we counsel and then we work with referral organizations to help them resolve whatever underlying issues are. Okay. So back to ways we can boost our emotional hygiene. We could also talk about ruminations. Ruminations are also a very unhealthy way of thinking. For a lot of people, at the end of the day, they find that maybe before they go to bed, they are replaying everything that happened that day. Oh, this happened, maybe I should have done it like this, I should have said this, that's what we call rumination. For some people it happens in the evening just before bedtime. For some people it's even during the day. They might be at their desk and they're already thinking so far. Someone walks into the room, they're even aware that someone has walked into the room because their minds are somewhere else. We don't like to encourage it, because rumination is the layman's term for rumination is overthinking. You're overthinking things, before become absent-minded, before it starts to tell on you and it becomes something more complicated. So it's something we do not like to encourage. So we say, when you find yourself in those moments, distract yourself with an activity. Distract yourself with something that will keep you mentally engaged. So maybe sing along, play a song and sing along to the song, engage in Scrabble, interact in conversation with a friend. So in that moment, you actively get up and go and engage someone else intentionally get up and go and engage someone. Pillar on ways to boost our emotional hygiene will be addressing emotional pain. So when this emotional pain shows up, be it trauma, grief, disappointment, rejection and all that, when it shows up, there's some people have a tendency to try to escape from it, so they push it under the carpet, they try to disregard it, and some people will be in denial, act like it doesn't exist. Some people will drink it away, smoke it away, some people would abandon it all and go on vacation and act like it doesn't exist, just escape. Human beings have a tendency to try to escape from the harsh realities of life. Yes, but the truth is, when you escape in that moment, when you finally come back from that vacation or come back from the bar, you are going to still meet the problem, and it might have even grown extra seeds and weeds waiting for you. So the best approach is usually to address the problem head on, and we say the best way is to practice self-care when in pain. Just like how we practice self-care in terms of our physical health, you brush your teeth, you use your deodorant, you rub your body lotion, you do all that. That's all self-care, to look good, to put our makeup, ladies like to put their lip balm so their lips remain moist, that's all self-care. For our emotional health too, there are also measures we can put to care for our emotional health. Very, very important. When your self-worth or your self-esteem has been bashed by an emotional wound, it's important that you put measures in place to lift your self-esteem back up, to boost your self-worth even in that moment. You don't want it to linger for too long, and one of the ways we do this is by practicing what we call self-compassion. So when you've been faced with criticism or disappointment, there's a tendency to try to want to blame or judge yourself for what has happened. I should have done it like this. No, I shouldn't have done it. I should have, and you're hitting, maybe it might be beyond your control. The circumstances might have been beyond your control. Even if you had acted perfectly, it might have still turned out the same way, So in self-compassion, it's like you would do to yourself as you would do to your best friend
or your baby.
So in that situation, if your best friend had come to meet you with that, especially for women, when your best friend comes and say, see what happened to me, and they're telling you that advice, you will give your best friend that do it like this. Now in that moment, advise yourself.
Yeah.
So sometimes we say, okay, write that advice you would have given Mr. Ajala, write it down. Write it down, then read it back to yourself. Read it back to yourself in that moment and encourage yourself. You understand? Be true to you, be frank with yourself the way you would be with a friend. That is one of the techniques in practicing self-compassion.
Okay, sorry, I just wanted to add to what you said now about what you tell yourself. That's what they also call mirror therapy, right? Where you stay in front of the mirror and then say positive affirmations to yourself daily, while saying I'm positive minded, I do this, I achieve this. So that could also help clear out all the negative
positive self-talk. So positive self-talk is very powerful.
I'm going to start that though.
Helps you, yes, very powerful. Sometimes you might, even on that same mirror, you take small stickable notes, put the words. So especially if you have a pattern, if there are certain words that come to your mind where you doubt yourself, there are certain areas you doubt yourself. Maybe you say I'm too short, or I'm not cute, or my nose is too big, or whatever it is. Everybody has their own whatever. So in the first we say, now write the opposite of that feeling, that thought that you have, that thought. Yes, we know that you are short, but in your brain, say, tell yourself that you are tall.
This is fate.
Tell yourself that you are tall. We know that you are, I don't know, I can't think of what example to use, but whatever it is, tell yourself.
And there are lots of positive songs that do lift moods of people.
Can help you, more upbeat songs. But there's a tendency when you're feeling negative, those low songs that you might be listening to, I don't want you might be crying now. But in that moment, it's actually the upbeat ones that you should actually, which is Afrobeats actually helps us. But let me put some Afrobeats,
because dancing helps too, right?
Dancing helps,
because the upbeat song might lead you to dancing.
Even if you're not in the mood to dance, still do it. So it's called, in a way, it's called behavioral activation. That behavior you don't want to engage in because of the way you are feeling. You just want to be miserable. I have a right to be miserable right now. Don't you know that my boss should be miserable? But in that moment, because knowing that you need to practice emotional self-care.
Yeah, that
you now actively engage in those behaviors you don't want to engage in, just to lift you out of that mood.
Yeah,
so that's what we're trying to say.
That brings me to Mr. Olurotimi. Do you encourage music in the workplace? You know, HR professionals have argued that over here. Some say it distracts, some say no, it helps the mind, you know, it helps the workplace, you know. What's that word you guys using?
What's that?
There's one word they say. Is it therapeutic?
As regards what?
Music in the workplace.
Music,
like, you know, music, yes.
Yes.
Some bosses will hear you listening to music and say you're not working. While some will see you and they say, oh, that's fine, you know, you're obviously still getting the job.
It's based on the policy of the workplace. Who did get fired for doing that?
Exactly.
That's why we want his opinion, because some workplaces allow it and some don't. So what's really your opinion? Do you think it's a positive thing to allow music? What's your own experience? Does music distract you?
Well, from a personal angle, music distracts me, right? Okay. But then my opinion, holistically, I would say if you have to, right, you could have don't distract the next person. That's just
your earphones.
You use your headphones and because I know of people who cannot read or can't concentrate without music. I've seen such people before. They are weird. Sorry to use the word weird. They are weird in nature. So, just if you have to, but as per organizational policies, it's a no, because it could distract the other person. And so,
unless I think maybe if it's a workplace where the staff come together to create the policies, and then there's a general consensus or a general agreement, and then the employer can maybe put headsets or
the speakers,
singing speakers and things, so that
it's always at the very low.
It has to be an agreement. It has to be the policy.
I think tech workspaces encourage it. Tech workspaces,
automobile shops,
yes,
don't have that.
Okay, that one.
We're running out of time.
Okay.
So in conclusion, I'm just going to talk about the importance of help. Help is extremely important when in managing our emotional health. We say, first, if you need help, don't be afraid to reach out for help. Speak up, reach out. Don't ever feel like, oh, I might ask and they would put me down, or they will start to talk about me. That's the worst that can actually happen. But you might actually get the help that you really need. So let's never be afraid to reach out for help. Let's be open to accept the help when it is offered. Some people someone might be offering, but they might not be willing. Oh, I don't want you to insult me tomorrow that you were the one that helped me and all that. That's a very, very wrong approach. So we should be open to accept help when it is offered, and then in turn we should help other people. It's very, very important. So in terms of our emotional help is extremely important. Reaching out, accepting it when it is offered, and helping other people. Okay, and now we've come to the end of our show. We would like to thank Mr. Ajala and his colleague from Future Finance Company Limited, Mr. Abi Olawale, as usual. Thank you for adding humor to our show. And then thank you to Lawyer Firm for hosting us. Same time next week, 10 a.m. on Wednesday, we'll be here again. Thank you, Lagos.